Alrighty, let's tighten this idler pulley down to 32 foot-pounds. Okay, 32 foot-pounds. I'm going to go ahead now and remove my clips. We can now take this up in the air and do the bottom. All right, the bolt holding the pulley with the Allen head, that is a 10 millimeter Allen head. Set your torque wrench to 25 foot-pounds. Okay, and then these are 20 foot-pounds. Better make sure I'm right on that. Sounds awfully high. That's what it says. It says it's 20 foot-pounds according to all data. So I'll have to get my torque wrench here. Click it down to 20. I want to get my 3/8 to 1/4 adapter on my torque wrench here. And I am going to use an extension with a 12 millimeter head. So the torque spec isn't going to be 100%, but it'll be pretty close. All right, I got that top one. And now I need to take the power steering pump and bend it back up all the way so I can get to the bolt on the bottom. I didn't have to bend it all the way, but I did go up. And now I'm getting this one on the bottom. Now, putting this long extension on there, I don't like doing it, but at the same time, what do? I can't get up there to it. All right, I think the next thing we need to do is pull that pin. So this is, if you want to go through and make sure all your marks are good again, now's the time to do it. So once you pull that pin, it's good. So what this pin does, it keeps that tensioner, that needle and that tensioner down. Now that I pull this pin, now it's under spring pressure, and everything is under pressure now. One thing that some people like to do, they'll take and turn the engine a little bit, just to make sure like all the teeth are, sit fully down in there. So I'm using a half dry or a adjustable wrench. I just turned a little bit. Everything seemed to turn pretty good. When you're doing that with the adjustable wrench, you got to be careful with the crank. It will mar it up if you're not careful, and then you can't get your harmonic balancer and stuff on there. All right, I think we're good enough to go. So now let's start reassembling. So since we're already down here, the first thing I'm going to do is put this guy, this little swash plate thing, back on here. Now, before I reinstall this bottom timing cover, you can see all that engine oil. I'm going to clean that up in the parts washer, so I'll be back. Before we can put the timing belt on, don't forget we got to put this piece on. And yes, I cleaned this piece off, and yes, I did paint it, made it all nice and shiny. I think it's going to make my brother laugh. He doesn't care about this car that much. But anyways, hey, there's nothing wrong with doing a good job, right? All right, so the bolt goes in the bottom, and then the stud that we took out, that's going to go in this hole right here. Remember, these two have to be in here in order to get that to come out. So it's going to be a little tricky. You got to put the bottom one on that stud that's below the water pump. Put it on there first, and then just kind of slide it in here. All right, now it's kind of sitting there like that. Now you got another long 12, but this one can sneak out. So put this on here, get it started. And I'm using a 12 millimeter quarter drive. Okay. Okay, we're going to torque those here in a few minutes. Let me get, so this is my E8 inverted Torx here. See if I can get that started by hand first. Okay. All right. And now I can get the bottom nut on. All right, got them all started. Let me look up the torque spec and see if I can get them torqued. Okay, these bolts to the mounting bracket for the engine mount are 21 foot-pounds. Okay, there's that one. I want to might have to get the inch-pound torque wrench on this one. Oh, there we go, it fit. Okay, got that one. The bottom two we'll get from the bottom. Okay, got the bottom ones torqued, and now I'm going to install my upper timing cover first, and then my lower one. If you notice, the upper one goes on first and goes behind the lower one. So this is why we have to do the upper one first. All right, let me put my hand back in here and push it around that camshaft, kind of like I did when I was taking it out. Okay, now I got to find my timing cover bolts. If you remember, they're actually a special looking bolt, and I'll show you again. They have this little shoulder on them, and voila, timing cover bolts. Now, you will need a 10mm socket for these, and once the job is all said and done, I plan on putting the sticker here on the timing cover, the date and the mileage of the vehicle, so that way I can tell when the last time this vehicle had a timing belt installed. So I'm going to go ahead and put all these in, and I'll get back and we'll torque these to spec as well. But you have, remember, you have one down, one here, here, one in the back that's hard to get to, and like one on the bottom is kind of tricky as well. And so let me find the torque spec and we'll go through them real quick. All right, so we are going to install the lower timing cover, and we've got 1, 2, 3, 4 little special bolts to put in. Before I install this, make sure you have your swash plate, okay? Have that little plate in there. All right, so I'm just gonna kind of put this up here, and should kind of just fit right in. You should have probably your 10mm deep well socket. These are also 71 inch-pounds. So you got 1, 2, and then you got one right here. And then another one hidden back over here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 71 inch-pounds. Let me torque them down real quick. Okay, this is your harmonic balancer. Put that up there. And then this right here needs to have a little bit of some Loctite put on it, because this bolt is going to a spinning shaft. So you want to make sure it does not back out. We're actually going to torque this monster to 162 foot-pounds. It's a lot. So I'm going to grab my half-drive impact. And now I'm going to take my strap wrench, I'm going to put around there, and we'll torque it to spec. So let me set that up real quick. Okay, so I got this chain vice grip called a strap wrench. Got it wrapped around the harmonic balancer, and I just torqued it down. This right here holds the harmonic balancer. All right, so that is now torqued to specification. You should not have to worry about that thing coming off. It's very important that you not only torque that bolt to specification, but also remember the Loctite. All right, so the next step, while we're down here, we could go ahead and put the power steering pump bracket back on. And we could go ahead, put the power steering belt back on. There we go. Alright, those are 12s, so let me get a extension here. Socket. I'll go ahead and tighten the bolt pretty good to the mount there. And now, our power steering belt that I left on the mirror, this is going to go in here. And the trick is for putting this on is to put it around the crankshaft first, okay? Whenever you're putting a serpentine belt on, you pretty much want to start with the crank. This one has a place for 2 belts, and then we're going for the one in the back here. All right, so we need to take a pry bar, and we're going to, and then just a little bit more. Let's see here. Just turn it in a little bit more. All right, now let's take this guy. Right, all the way up like that. Now put the belt around the crank. Goes around the pulley. And now we need to tighten this power steering belt up. So what you need to do is kind of get on the pulley like that. See if I can zoom in a little bit for you. Okay. Get your 12 millimeter ready. Put a little bit of tension on it. Okay. And now we're going to check the belt. Make sure it's in the groove. Make sure it didn't get caught on anything else. And I can twist it about halfway. That should be pretty good. All right, I'm gonna look at the torque specs for that real quick so we can torque them down. Both of these bolts are supposed to be torqued to 32 foot-pounds. All right. I do not want to put the bottom cover on yet because it's going to be easier to put the belt on from the top without that cover on. So the time belt or the power steering belt's on there. I can twist it about halfway up. That should be pretty good. You can always adjust it. It does make a squealing sound later, but it's on there. Everything seems to be good. So now we're going to put this down and start from the top again. Well, as I was thinking about, I was saying, you know what, maybe I ought to pause for a second, putting this motor mount on and putting everything back together and get back to the intake manifold. So, something I want to show you, I mentioned earlier that you're going to want to replace the PCV valve, right? So this PCV valve stands for positive crankcase ventilation. And what this valve does, it basically lets vapors from the crankcase down like where your oil is, down the towards the oil pan, those vapors to come up and basically flow out. So that way those vapors can get out. If this valve is stuck and it does not allow vapors to flow, then you're probably going to notice a lot of gaskets leaking, which this car, one of the complaints is that it has a lot of oil leaks. So I want to show you something. This valve is stuck. Probably here, I'll get up next to my microphone. Can't really hear it, right? But this one, I don't know if you can hear that or not, flows freely. This one, not so much. So 19 millimeter socket, you can change this out without removing the intake manifold, but I will tell you, it is a pain in the butt. So the part number I'm using to change it is a V386, and I'm going to try a ratchet wrench. You might be better off with a socket. And it goes in the top of the valve cover like so, and it's got this sealant already built onto the thread, so you shouldn't have to put sealant on there. If it doesn't have sealant on there, you may want to put some kind of pipe dope or something maybe. Okay, just do nice and snug. And now I'm going to take my hose, put it on top, and that hose actually connects into the intake manifold. All right, speaking of intake manifold, while I was on that last break, I decided I would clean the mating surface. So I put some towels, stuffed them down in there, and I used my little whizzer wheel that's safe for aluminum and a rag, and I cleaned up that mating surface. So now I'm going to clean up the intake manifold, and we're going to replace that gasket, and let's get this intake sit back on here. All right, we are using MS 96586 Felpro upper intake, or maybe called a plenum, PLENUM gasket set. And what I want to do there is just take this old gasket right here out, set it to the side, and then put this new gasket. Should only go in there one way. Okay. Got our stuff in there. Okay. Yeah, whenever you take one of these intakes off, man, you should really replace these gaskets. Sometimes people have, taken them off and not replaced them and gotten away with it, but man, they're not very expensive. Nice little insurance policy. And now we're ready to install the intake. So let me get the bracket on the back, get that on there, get that ready, and yeah, here comes another hard part of the job. This is probably going to be the worst part of the job, putting this thing back on here.